Hello everyone, welcome back to my knowledge share session. Learn with me. Today we are going to continue on the same topic, cloud platform integration. In that we will be seeing a topic called a data store. A data store is a temporary storage that we will be storing our messages inside the CPI for a certain period of time, and later we can use that message for further processing. And this is a persistent data store. However, it has its own lifetime. For an example, for a day or two, then it will be deleted. So now we will see how we can store the messages inside the data store and we can access it inside the CPI. Just see that overview of the diagram. The center system will send you the messages in a form of payload. In the iFlow we will store it in a data store, and further the iFlows can read it later and process it. Okay, this is how that data store will be used inside the iFlow. Now we will see how we are going to use it in a iFlow. Before that, let me give you a brief introduction of data store in a PowerPoint. Then I will go into my iFlow to show you the demonstration. Okay, what is a data store? A data store is a temporary storage area in the CPI tenant. It shares the entire CPI tenant database with other components, a message store and variables, etc. So the data store can be, you can see that in the monitoring section of your CPI. There will be a one section called manage store. In the manage store you will have a data store sections. So how many data stores you are creating, that many the tiles, that numbers will be shown here. We can further drill down and see that. So remember, this is a temporary storage only. It is not a permanent storage. Temporary storage in the sense it has its own lifetime. Okay, what is the scope of a data store? You have two different type of data store. One is called a global and another one is called local. As the name suggests, a global is accessible to all iFlows in the tenant, meaning a data store, the messages inside the data store can be accessed by other iFlows also if you set the data store as a global. If you set the data store as a local, then you can access the data store only by the same iFlow which you have created it. Okay. Now, what are the scenarios at which we are going to use the data store? The one type is called store and pickup. That means a sender system is going to send a data in the same iFlow. You will be storing it in a data store in a continuous basis. Then after the all data are received in the data store, then I will start reading one by one from the data store and process it. This is one way of doing that. Right? You may ask the question, why you need this data store in between. Probably if you are using a large amount of data, then you cannot process it simultaneously. As a first step, you will receive all the data inside the data store. Then the next step you will process it. So this is the one scenario we will be using a data store. The other data store is that extension of the first step. First, I will receive all the messages and store it in a data store and decouple my center system, so that my center system will not be connected anymore. Then another iFlow will pick up the data from the data store and process it. So that is, as I said, first one is store and pick up directly. Second one is store and decouple the center, and another iFlow will pick up later and process it. The third scenario would be you will process the incoming messages, and if at all any message is having any error, then only those exceptions will be stored in the data store, and later part the another iFlow will reprocess the error items. So these are all the three scenarios we will be using it in a data store. Okay, what are the operations you can do it in a data store? You can write messages inside the data store, and you can, after writing it from the another iFlow, you can select and read that. One or multiple messages, you can select it and read it, process it, or you can get a specific messages by giving the ID and do that. Once all the messages are reprocessed from the data store, then you can delete the messages. Okay. The last part is, what is the lifetime of your message in the data store? The message inside the data store has a specified your lifetime at the time of creation. When you are creating a data store, it will ask you to specify the lifetime for it. Maybe you can specify as 3 days, 4 days, like that. So you can see the message in the test data store. I have two messages which I created on November 25th, and it has a lifetime till due at 25. Sorry, I created in 24 and due at 25, 1 day time, right? So still it is not deleted, so it is giving me a status called overdue. So you have to process it and delete it. So this is how the data store can be used. So this is the lifetime, and you have the operations called write, select, get and delete, and you have three scenarios at which you can use the data store, and the scope of a data store is global and local. And so what is a data store? Data store is just a temporary storage which you can keep your messages for a number of times, then process it later and delete it. Okay, now we will go to the BTP or iFlow and show you how I am going to create a message inside the data store and I am going to read it. Okay. Okay, now I am inside the BTP. First let me show you the data store places. I am in the monitoring section. In the manage store section, you are having a place called data store. Okay, so when you right now I have one data store called test. Okay, it has two messages. So today we are going to create a new data store that we will see it once it is created. Let me come back to overview. So you have a data store section. Now the second part is, as I told you, when you store a message inside a data store, you have to have an ID for it, right? To identify the messages, whether to read it via select statement or get statement, as we saw that. Okay, so to generate an ID, I am going to use one of my number ranges here. Okay, so for a detailed portion of a number range, I already created one video for it. You can refer to that. So let me open a number range. There are two number ranges I have. One is called help desk and another one is called number range 1, which is having a minimum value of 1, maximum is 500, and the so far 12 number I have used, so 13 will be my next available number. So when I create a message inside a data store, my ID is expected to be 13, right? So this is what I am going to use it now. So remember, we need to have an ID for messages inside a data store. So I am going to use a number range. The number range ID will be number range 1. Okay, now I will go to iFlow and I will create it. So I am inside a package. Let me go to sample. Then I will go to sample artifacts. So I will create a new iFlow. So I will create a name called DS2. Okay, data store 2. Add it. So as a first step, I am going to connect it from the sender as a HTTPS, and I give the name called DS2. Okay, let me save for it. Okay, as I told you, I need to first, before writing a message inside the data store, I need a ID for it, right? So let me create one content modifier here. The content modifier, I will create an exchange property. I will say add, that I will give a name called ID. The source type is the number range, and the number, I am going to give the number range name here. That is called number range 1, right? This is what the number range we have. Here remember, I have this one, number range 1. Correct. Now we are ready with that. Now create another palette called, I can call it as write. When you say write, there is a palette called write, which is coming under data store operations section, right? So I will choose write. So this will write inside the data store. So go to the processing section. There you can give the existing data store name or a new data store name. So I am going to give a called sales. My data store name will be a sales. Visibility will be a integration flow, means it's a local. I am going to make it as a global. Okay, now the ID. So inside the data store it sales, the messages will be stored in the form of the payload will be stored in the form of messages. So each message will have an ID, so that ID you have to give it here. So you know that we already created one number range object in the content modifier. So I will create here as $property.id, right? ID was my exchange property .id. Now see the lifetime. Now see the retention threshold for alerting every 2 days, right? It will give me alert for me. I showed you in the PowerPoint. Once it's created, I will show you in the monitoring section. So in the data store section, it will show you an alert. That means the message is still lying in the data store. So that you want every after 2 days, it has to give an alert. So total expiration date is 30 days. After 30 days, this will be deleted, automatically deleted. So the message will be lying inside the data store sales for a 30 days. Other things you keep it open. Okay. If we want to include the header messages also, you can make it a header. Or if you want to suppress the header messages inside the data store, you can suppress it. What I will do is I will make it include header messages. And suppose your ID it's the same message existing, whether you want to overwrite it or not, that is option here. In our case, it's not going to be overwrite because every time a new number will be generated. In case if you want to handle any overwriting options, you can use this. That's all. Now I will save it. Right. Now see my flow. iFlow now. As such, I don't want any receiver here. So the sender section will initiate my iFlow by passing a payload. The content modifier will generate a ID for it, and it will write the data inside the data store called store. Now I will save it and deploy it. Right. It takes some time. Let us wait for it. Okay, now it is deployed. Now we will go to Postman and execute this and see that. Okay, now I am inside the Postman. I am going to execute the iFlow now. As I told, this is my URL. We call it the DS2, which I am going to execute it. So here I am going to pass a payload. Okay, let us see. This is my JSON file, a shopping log. Okay, so this payload I am going to pass it, the whole payload. So in that, this is the payload passed by external system, but here to simulate that, I am passing it via the Postman. Okay, now we will see. Once it is executed, if it works fine, then I can see the same messages inside my monitoring section data store. Okay, I am sending it. see the status is 200. Okay, so it returned me back exactly the same messages here because we did not do anything on this message, we are just storing it. So the postman returned me back the same payload as it is. Okay, that means this iFlow is working fine, and we should go and see that now whether the data is stored inside my data store or not. Okay, let me go to my data store. I'll go to my monitoring section. See, previously the data store was 1 when before that, now data store is 2. So now we go that, see there is a sales data store is created. So there is only one message now. Okay, so when I go into the message, see the ID 13 is created. We saw that, right? Number range, the 13 is created now. Now as such it is now created, so the status is waiting. If you open this messages after 2 days, then you will get a message called overdue. For example, in the test you can see that, right? This is same as it is like I created. So now it is more than 2 days, it shows me overdue. Probably December 25th it may be deleted automatically. Right, now we will come back to the sales data store which we created now. Now one message is created. Okay, now what we'll do is we will resend the same message again in the postman, and let us see how it works. I will go to postman. I will clear this. I am resending the same message. Send. Success again. It has done again. So let me go to monitoring section. The data store. See, the sales has 2 messages now. So 13 and 14. Right. Now what we can do is just to see what is the message inside it. We will select this message and I will download it. If you don't want to process it, you can manually delete it here also. So let me see download and see it. I will download it. So it gone to download. Let me open the zip file. See, header property. Header property is nothing because we did not pass any header in this. So it has its own standard thing only. And let me go to body, notepad. See, the same message has come inside. Right, this is the same one which I passed it. That's it. So this is how you can store data inside the data store in the form of messages. Next section we will see how to read it. Right, we will go to iFlow and see how to read the messages. So the first part is over. We received the data from the sender and stored it in a data store. As a next step, we will from another iFlow we will try to read the same thing. Okay. Okay, now I am in the iFlow. I am going to create a new iFlow to read the messages from the data store. Okay, let me create a new iFlow for it. This I will call it as DS3. Okay, I will add it. Opening it, DS3. The regular part I am connecting to via HTTPS. This I will call it as TS3 connection slash TS3. Okay, I don't want this CRPF and everything. Okay, here either you can create another number range and select it from there, but just for testing purpose I am not going to create any number range because I know the ID. What I will do is I will directly read the things. Okay, so I will create. So here another option is called get, data store operations get. Okay, so using a get, so you know the data store name, then we call it as sales. On visibility is global, and here the entry ID, you have to specify the message ID here. Generally we have to do handle it via the number range, the writing number range and reading number range. You can create it so that you need not to hard code it here, but for testing purpose I am going to hard code it here. Let us read their message 14, right? We created 13 and 14, right? If you go here, see I am going to read this message, so I know the number 3014, so I directly give a number range here. Once it's processed, you can delete it from here, delete on process, throw exception on missing entry. Suppose your number is not existing, then you handle the exception here. Okay, that's it, very simple. Read it and save it. Okay, let me deploy it. Let it deploy it, and then we will continue the postman and see the output. Sometimes the deployment takes much time. Yeah, now it is started. Let me go to postman now. So this one we call it as DS3, right? Connection we call it as DS3. Okay, let me go to postman. I will clear the response. Now I am not going to pass anything. I am not going to pass anything in my payload. So the output I should get the message which I already created, right? So I will call DS3. I am going to execute it. So what it will do, it has to fetch the data message 0014 from the data store and display it back. Okay, and send it. See, it has come up. The message has come. Read 200. Okay, so it has read from the data store and store it back. Now what we will do is we have one option, right? Let us go and in this option, the 3014. I will delete on completion. Put a mark here and save it. And deploy it again. Deployment status. Let it be well known. Let us see the monitoring section here. And the sales, you have a 14 is there. After execution, this 14 should be deleted for our things, right? Let it deploy. Yeah, now it is started. So I'll go to Postman again. I will remove the response. Okay, I'm going to re-execute it. So the message ID 14 will be read and displayed here. After that, it will be deleted from the data store. Okay, we'll go to data store here. We'll verify again data store 2 store. So this 14 should have been deleted after executing this. Okay, let me go to Postman and execute it. Yeah, it read and displayed it. Assume that it is processed. Now let us go to iFlow monitoring section. Data store 2. See, the message from 2 it has become 1. So the 14 is deleted. That's it. So this is how the data store section is working in CPI. You can store a data inside the data store, keep it for some time, you can process it later, and you can read it using a get statement, providing an ID of the message, and process it and delete it. Okay, so hope this section will be helpful to you. You can use the temporary storage inside the CPI as a data store, and it will be helpful for you to process your message in a batch process. Okay, thank you for watching. Please do comments and put your remarks, and thank you so much.